Lone Kingdom, Ahova County, Tianjin City. It's night time. A crimson moon hangs in the night sky. The crimson moon pours down the crimson moonlight. In the bedroom of a single-family house on Wendell Street, North District, the crimson moonlight shines through the glass window on the face of the young man sleeping on the bed. Suddenly, the young man's face became hideous and twisted, and the blue veins on his temples burst out, but he could not wake up. It seemed that a nightmare had entered his mind, eroding him, and the young man began to dance in front of him. Hands, fingers curled into claw suits, as if to tear apart this nightmare and wake up. Under the light of the red moon, it looks so strange, but no one except the red moon has seen this situation. At this moment, a dark cloud drifted by, just covering the red moon. The young man on the bed struggled more and more fiercely. His hands and feet kept gesturing and hitting everything on the bed. It seemed that he had reached the most intense moment. Just when Hongya was about to step out of the dark clouds, the young man suddenly stopped all movements. Like a disconnected puppet, his hands and feet fell back to the bed without warning, and Hongya just got out of the dark clouds at this time, the crimson moonlight. It reappears on the youth, hazy and dreamy. I do not know how long it has been. Pain. Headache. It hurts all over. As soon as Gaogu woke up from the bed, he felt a strong pain. What's the matter? I didn't do any strenuous exercise. Why do I feel like my body is falling apart? Just after Gaogu muttered a few words, scenes of memories that did not originally belong to him suddenly flashed into his mind from time to time. The Kingdom of Lone, Ahova County, Tianjin City. Haidal Smith. It feels a little familiar to these places. Gaogu opened his eyes with all his strength, and through the glass window, he saw a red moon hanging in the sky. Red moon. This is the world of the Lord of Mysteries. Gaogu jumped up from the bed at once. This action made his already aching body even more unbearable. He gasped for a moment, and his whole body grimaced in pain, so he could only lie down again. He was lying on the bed and frowned. How can you wear it into the mystery? Even if you wear it in the sky to be a security guard, it feels better than wearing it in the mystery. Although mystery is his favorite book, it is definitely the last book he wants to read. Because this is a world where even if you are willing to be an ordinary person, you may be involved in strange events at any time. And the ending is often not very good. The parents of this body seem to have died because of a strange event. In this case, I will have a greater chance of encountering strange events in the future. Gaogu pressed his temples, forced himself to calm down, and searched the memory of this body. It is 1349, May 28. I remember that Klein seemed to be in 1349, and he only crossed over on June 28. So I crossed over a month earlier than him. That's fine, so let me have more time to prepare. Well, my name is Hiddle Smith, and I have a brother. Dunn Smith, sigh. Gaogu's eyes widened. Is Captain Dunn my brother? I'm actually Captain Dunn's brother. Why don't I remember that the captain had a younger brother? Well, maybe there is, but the squid didn't write it down. But, the captain behind will die. Gaogu remembered that when the squid wrote the captain to death, he was sent a lot of blades, so that the squid later gave up the idea of writing a few more, and then said that he was not cruel enough. Hey, no, I have to find a way to save the captain. Whether it was because of his feelings for the captain when he was reading the book back then, or because he became the captain's younger brother through time travel, Gaogu didn't want the captain to die. Gaogu began to recall the general content of the Lord of Mysteries in his mind, but because it was a long time, he couldn't remember it clearly. He only remembered some general plots and some things that appeared frequently. Maybe I'll suddenly remember something when I see something in the future, but now that I'm forced to remember something, I really can't remember that much. Gaogu was a little helpless. For example, the most mysterious settings in his mind now, and the general plot of the 008 script, because the captain died because of the 008 script. The most important thing now is to find a way to become a Beyonder first. Gao Gu tried to remember a certain sequence 9 potion formula, but soon, he gave up completely, because it was impossible to remember such a precise thing. But Gao Gu quickly thought of another direction. Don't forget, he is the younger brother of Captain Dun Smith. In this case, I can find a way to join the Nighthawks team, and then use the Church of Evernight to embark on the path of Beyonders. Although there are many restrictions on having an official background, it is relatively safe. At least you don't have to hide from XZ like Klein did in the future. Thinking of this, Gao Gu propped him up to sit up. He felt that his body had improved a lot, and when he first woke up, the pain was terrible. By the way, Klein hasn't come down from the Origin Castle yet, so can I go in now and take the Origin Castle down, so that he doesn't have to come down? Gao Gu felt that this method might be feasible, but then frowned again. I remember that Primordial Castle requires a ceremony and a spell to enter, but I don't remember what the ceremony is, and I can't remember the spell clearly. If it's a fool who doesn't belong to this era, I can still remember it, but this is Klein's own honorable name, and it's useless now. This road can only be stopped. UU reading www.yukanshu.com. Gao Gu got out of bed and saw the red moon in the night sky. Relying on Siddar's own memory, he drew a circle on his chest and said, "Praise the goddess." Looking at the crimson moon in the sky and the dark starry sky, Gao Gu remembered something and murmured, "Red moon, primitive moon, starry sky, old days, outer gods. Not good." Gao Gu suddenly remembered these things because he saw the red moon and the starry sky, and these reminded him again, this is something that can only be understood after becoming sequence 2, otherwise, just understanding will bring great danger. And at this moment, I am just an ordinary person, not even an extraordinary, so there is only one ending, die. Almost at the same time, the original disc-sized crimson moon suddenly became incomparably large, occupying half of the sky. The light on the surface of the crimson moon stretched and stretched, as if it had come alive. Above the unseen moon, a crimson sea flows, it drowns everything, and the entire surface of the moon is wrapped by this crimson sea. When Gao Gu remembered about the outer gods, the blood-colored ocean boiled, as if alive, the sea water quickly condensed to one place, and climbed up like countless worms, and finally formed a huge a red phantom. Above the phantom, there are countless eyes, constantly flashing scarlet light, they look down at the blue planet in front of them. In the farther out universe, brown stars, orange stars, red stars, Venus, and blue stars flickered at the same time, as if they blinked their eyes, and cast their eyes on the blue planet, to establish a connection through understanding Gao Gu. What? At the moment when the outer gods in the universe cast their eyes on Gao Gu, he screamed in pain, and the whole person hugged his head and fell directly to the ground. In his mind, countless terrifying, maddened sounds resounded in his mind. At this time, Gao Gu felt like someone was holding a sharp bayonet, stabbed deeply into his brain, and kept stirring. At the same time, Gao Gu was horrified to find that the flesh and blood on his body began to swell, his stomach bulged rapidly, like a pregnant woman, and then he heard the cry of a baby. At the same time, countless finger-sized blood-colored flesh particles began to appear all over his body, one after another, as if the Beyonder was out of control, turning into a flesh-and blood monster, and between those blood-colored flesh particles, the surface of his skin began to cracks appeared, the cracks opened slightly, and there were blood-colored eyes, just like the countless eyes on the moon with the surface of the huge phantom, evil and depraved, and Gao Gu's thoughts were no longer able to concentrate. I'm dying. Just when Gao Gu thought that he was about to die, in some obscure corner of the star realm, a pure white light quickly lit up and quickly disappeared in the star realm, as if it had never appeared before. And after the white light disappeared, the countless eyes of the huge red phantom above the moon suddenly stopped flickering, and at the same time withdrew their gazes and began to close, turning into cracks. Like the phantom, the brown stars, orange stars, red stars, Venus, and blue stars that were originally flickering in the universe stopped flickering at the same time. After staring at the blue planet again, the phantom began to fade away, turning back into countless blood-red sea water, submerging the white moon surface again, and the moon turned red again, but the whole moon trembled. Well, it seems to be excited. And Gao Gu, at the moment when the white light lit up, his consciousness was gone. When he regained consciousness and opened his eyes, white light shot into his eyes. It was clearly white light, but it wasn't dazzling. When it shone on his body, it made Gao Gu feel like his body and mind were completely purified. Where is this? Am I dead? Gao Gu found that he had become a normal person again, looked up and saw huge and magnificent white pillars, exuding a simple and majestic atmosphere. Each of these pillars is more than 5 meters in diameter and goes straight into the clouds. Unfortunately, there are no clouds here. Visually, each one is more than 100 meters long. At the top of the column, there are blocks of long square columns. And beyond the range of these pillars, there is a vast expanse of white outside, and nothing can be seen. It's a bit like the pillars of the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. Gao Gu came to a conclusion by looking at the pattern formed by these pillars, but soon his attention was no longer on these pillars, and he saw the white light. Object. A great shining cross. Am I really dead? Is this really heaven? Seeing this huge cross, Gao Gu subconsciously thought that this was heaven. No, if this is heaven, then there should be God or someone else, but besides me, there's no one else. Wait, I just traveled to the mysterious world, is it possible that this place, like the Origin Castle, is in an origin quality? Thinking of this, Gao Gu couldn't help but light up, because it's not impossible, but the 9 sources of the mysterious world, he only remembers the 2 source qualities of Origin Castle and Chaos Sea, and he can't remember what the other ones are called. However, even if it is not one of the 9 great source qualities, it may be other source qualities in the universe. After all, the reason why those outer gods is because they have source qualities in them. After reading the online novel, Gao Gu is no stranger to the fact that the traveler comes with a golden finger. Now that this benefit has been given to him, he is actually a little fortunate. Although Gao Gu thought about these things, he was not idle and kept walking in the direction of the radiant cross. As he approached, Gao Gu found that the cross was not standing directly on the ground, but on a high platform. There were steps to go up to the high platform. His eyes went up the steps, and Gao Gu saw that he was under the cross and above the high platform. Has a grey and white seat. The grey and white seat was a bit large, with its back against the cross, as if it was connected to it, because it was so small compared to the cross that Gao Gu didn't notice it before. And as he moved forward, he soon saw a small silver-white cross on the armrests on both sides of the grey-white seat, and a book on the other. Hey? Could it be the relic of the original owner of this place? Go up and have a look. Gao Gu quickened his pace, and finally even trotted, crossed the long steps, and soon came to the high platform. However, he was so tired that he breathed heavily. Seeing the large grey and white seat in front of him, he stretched out his palm and pressed it on the seat for support, but nothing happened. So Gao Gu took advantage of the situation and sat up, wanting to rest. The moment he sat down, the radiant cross behind him instantly radiated dazzling light. At this moment, the entire hall seemed to be bathed in divine light. Those huge and magnificent pillars trembled at this moment, as if celebrating the new arrival here. The Master. And Gao Gu, although he didn't know why this happened, he felt that at this moment, he became the master of this temple. And the moment he took his seat, he knew the name of this place heaven. Soon, heaven returned to its original appearance again. I didn't expect it to be called heaven. It seems to be the same as what I guessed. This source quality comes from other parts of the universe. After all, none of the 9 sources is called heaven. Otherwise, I will definitely remember, then I will go to heaven. Is it my consciousness, or is it even my body? Gao Gu rubbed his temples, but became a little worried for a while. If the latter is okay, it means that he is out of danger now, and he no longer has to worry about being polluted by the outer gods. If it is the former, then his real body is now afraid. Out of control into a monster, and I am afraid I can't go back, I can only stay in heaven in the future. Gao Gu still had lingering fears when he thought of the monster appearance he saw before he lost consciousness. As expected of a mysterious world, I just crossed over and turned me into a monster. Gao Gu rubbed his temples again, stopped thinking about this issue for the time being, and was busy with the things in front of him. He looked at the silver-white cross on the right, and carefully and gently reached out to pick it up. The role of this silver-white cross naturally emerged in his mind. First of all, it has a powerful purification and healing ability. Secondly, it can extract redundant extraordinary characteristics in an instant, such as a copy of Sequence 8 extraordinary characteristics. It can extract multiple copies of Sequence 9 extraordinary characteristics, and if it is a Sequence 7 extraordinary characteristics, it can extract multiple copies of Sequence 8 and more copies of Sequence 9. Therefore, even if the Beyonder characteristics are polluted, they can be purified and precipitated using the cross. Of course, the most important thing is that this cross has a very high personality. If you are high-ranking, then I will hold it in the future, maybe like Klein with the blasphemy card, and do things with a spiritual body, but I am not even a Beyonder now. Gao Gu shook his head helplessly, put down the cross, and looked at the book on his left. The cover of the book is dark cyan with 2 distorted glyphs written on it. Although he has never seen such words before, for some reason, Gao Gu recognized it at a glance. Blasphemy. Blame. After Gao Gu read these 2 words, a cold air rushed to the top of his head from his tailbone, and at the same time, he felt a deep sense of fear. Regarding blasphemy, there are the first blasphemous stone tablet and the second blasphemy stone stele, and there is at most 1 blasphemy card. As for the first 2, one was left by the Prime God, and the other was left by the creator of the City of Silver. Prime is the old days, and the creator of the City of Silver is also a quasi-ancient existence. As for the blasphemy card, it was made by Roselle and was of a very high personality, but Gao Gu knew without thinking that the word blasphemy in this book must have nothing to do with him. Because this paradise, Gao Gu is very sure that it is a source quality, and if Roselle has this source quality, he will not be polluted by the fallen mother goddess. In the end, he committed suicide and was reborn without getting rid of the other party. In addition to the radiant cross behind it, it further shows that only the first 2 are possible. Then who left this paradise? The original god? Or the creator of the City of Silver? Gao Gu didn't know much about the original god, so he could only try to recall the information about the creator of the City of Silver. I remember that the creator of Silver City seems to be still alive, but has just become Adam. If the source material was left by him, he should have taken it back long ago. After all, this is a source material. If Adam has this source material, then his means may have long since become the new old days with this source quality. Since it wasn't made in vain, then it can only be the relic of the primordial god. After all, the origin of the primordial was plural, and this origin is probably stolen from other outer gods in the outside world. Moreover, Bai Zhao itself is just a means by which the primitive god arranged to resurrect himself. Gao Gu, who came to the conclusion, nodded and was satisfied with his reasoning. Of course, all of this was just his speculation. Then he rubbed his temples again. Yuanchuo and Tianzun seem to be deadly enemies. If what I get now is the original source quality, and Klein will get the source quality of Tianzun in the future, if I join the Tarot Club in the future, will I? Was found by Yuan Bao to be abnormal, and then kicked me out directly. It's not impossible. Yuan Chu has been dead for so many years and still hasn't died. Maybe I have to be careful of Yuan Chu's recovery in my body in the future, lest I end up like Bai Zhao and Klein. I feel pity for Klein now. In Gao Gu's view, the source quality of heaven is likely to be the successor of primordial resurrection. Although the primitive god had already left Chaos Sea and arranged Bai Zhou as his successor to resurrection, they're this kind of people. If there is only one rear hand of resurrection, then it will really underestimate them. Just like when the goddess and Roselle didn't take the Go Sanjia route when they came out of Origin Castle, it was obvious that something went wrong with the arrangement of Heavenly Venerate. But when he arrived at Klein, it was the beyonder characteristics of the Servant of Mysteries that came down with him directly. If it wasn't for the goddess to stop him, at the moment when Klein came down, he who had no faith as an anchor would have become a Heavenly Venerate. Gao Gu regained his thoughts and looked at the Book of Blasphemy again. Only then did he notice that the Book of Blasphemy had a thick cover, but inside it seemed to be a thin piece of paper. A piece of paper can't record many sequence potion formulas. Gao Gu took it for granted that the Book of Blasphemy recorded all the potion formulas of the sequence pathway, otherwise it would not be called blasphemy. However, even if there is only one piece, Gao Gu still has some expectations. Even if it is a piece of paper, it is impossible to record all the potion formulas, and there should be 3 or 4. When Gao Gu opened the Book of Blasphemy, the expression on his face suddenly froze. There is indeed a potion formula in it, but there is only one potion formula. Yes, one, not one. How come there is only one? Gao Gu was very puzzled about this, and suddenly he realized something was wrong. Sequence 9 priests, 100 ml of pure water, 10 grams of sunflower, 10 grams of golden mint leaves. What kind of sequence 9 is this? Why haven't I heard of it? Is it because of the ancient name? Clergy, and this recipe calls for sunflower dew. Is it the ancient name of the sun path sequence 9, and the sequence 9 of the sun sequence is called Singer? It really might be. Gao Gu couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He didn't want to take the sun path, because the eternal blazing sun had already become a god. The other 4 paths that could be turned, except the audience path, all had gods. Turning to the audience? Haha, don't be kidding. Therefore, he is now taking the sun path, which is completely self-defeating. Apart from becoming a god, there are some more dangerous paths. There are not many paths that can be taken, and if you take the wrong path, this source quality is likely to kick me out and no longer recognize me. Gao Gu sat on the grey-white seat and supported his head with his hands, feeling a little troubled for a while. Suddenly, something flashed in his mind. He quickly closed his eyes to look for the sudden inspiration, and pondered deeply. Finally, Gao Gu's frowning brows stretched, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. There is only this sequence formula in the Book of Blasphemy of Heaven. Obviously, I am afraid that I will take another path, so it must be the only way to master the essence of heaven. I actually still think that the clergy is the path of the sun, but it's not at all. Heaven is the source quality originally obtained from the outside world, so the path that belongs to it is not among the 22 paths at all. This is a brand new path of God. Gao Gu stood up abruptly. Then that means that this path is very likely that no one is going now, and I will be the only one going in the future, and no one will rob me. As long as I am careful, don't lose control, and don't die, then, if I want to become it's even simpler than Klein. And if this pathway does not have an adjacent pathway, when I become a god, I can integrate the source quality of heaven, and then I can directly become the old days. Even if there is an adjacent pathway, relying on the source quality, the strength can also be comparable to the gods who have mastered the 2 sequences, and it will be half of the old days after the fusion of the source material. Even if the end comes, I will be enough to protect myself. Thinking of this, the smile on Gao Gu's face could no longer be stopped. But soon, his smile froze, because he didn't know if he was dead. If I die, wouldn't I be trapped here and can't get out? If I don't die, how should I go back now? Also, will I go out of control when I go back? After all, I know things like old day, outer god and starry sky. If they look at me again after I go back, won't I become like before? Monsters, you can't be pulled up by heaven again. If you keep repeating this, you won't be able to do anything. For a while, Gaogu felt a little headache. Wait, have a headache? The next moment, Gaogu disappeared into heaven, and the book of blasphemy was closed again. In the whole heaven, only the huge radiant cross was still emitting a soft light, which remained unchanged for eternity. When Gaogu woke up, he found himself lying on the cold ground, surrounded by darkness. He quickly stood up and found that he was still in the previous room. He hurriedly observed his own condition. The bulging belly had been retracted, and the blood-colored flesh and the dense eye crevices disappeared, and he became a normal person again. Looking through the window, the red moon in the sky has returned to its normal size, and now he has not been polluted by them because of his understanding of the starry sky. This made Gaogu let out a long sigh of relief, and said happily, "It seems that heaven has helped me remove their gaze and pollution." At this moment, a strong sleepiness struck, and he hurriedly went to bed, unwilling to sleep on the floor again. The next morning, he didn't wake up from his sleep until his stomach was rumbling with hunger. I remember that Hiddle had the habit of ordering breakfast, and now, it should have arrived. Gaogu yawned, got up from the bed, and left the room. He and Dun lived in a single-family house with 2 floors. The second floor had 6 rooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 large balconies, and 1 downstairs dining room, a living room, a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and a basement storage room. Outside the house, there is a private lawn of 2 areas in front and a small garden at the back. As for the rent, it is £1.5 soles a week. However, Dun's salary is £12 a week, and this has not been added with various subsidies, so even if the rent is very expensive, they can fully afford it. But why is there no servant? According to Hiddle's memory, he came to the bathroom. In front of a mirror, he saw a man with thick black long hair, well-defined facial features, and a pair of grey and deep eyes, which seemed to attract people deeply. "He's still a little handsome," the high-ranking customer commented. After a simple wash, he went downstairs and left the house. He saw a green box next to the mailbox, and his breakfast was placed in it. Taking out the breakfast, there is a beef sandwich with spread, a small piece of white bread with butter and a bottle of milk. After a simple breakfast, Gaogu began to recall the magic potion formula he obtained from the clergy in heaven. He found that he didn't need to recall, as long as he remembered, the formula would emerge, as if the formula was imprinted in his brain. Then the next step is to find a way to collect the ingredients for the recipe. I remember that the underground trading market is in the Dragon Bar, It seems that Hiddle went there, or with his classmates. It is quite normal to think about it. Siddhar himself is not short of money, and the same is true of several of his classmates' homes, so when they are interested in occultism, these people go to the trading market to buy some occult materials for research, or it's perfectly normal to try to do rituals that come from hearsay. In this case, I don't have to go to the trouble of looking for it, and I'll buy it today. As for money, Gaogu is not worried at all. I have to say that Captain Dun still loves his brother very much. Every week, he will deposit the rest of last week's money in the bank, and then keep last week's salary at home. In the safe, whether it is the bank or the safe password, Hidal knows it, and Dun also said to him, "If you want to buy something, or do something, and the money is more than the money in the safe, then don't take the money in it, go to the bank to get it." In Gaogu's impression, it seemed that Hidal had only withdrawn money from the bank a few times, and the last time he had withdrawn seemed to be last year, and after he had withdrawn the money, the bank staff told him that there were £5,000. Now that a year has passed, I'm afraid a lot has been added to it. It's good to have money. Gaogu couldn't help but let out a sigh, and a malicious smile suddenly appeared on his face. I have to find an opportunity to show it off in the future. Click. Just when Gaogu was thinking about these things with a proud face, there was the sound of the key opening the door. Gaogu hurriedly turned his head to look at the door. I saw a man who appeared to be in his 30s, holding a silver cane in his hand, wearing a half-top hat, wearing a black trench coat, a straight nose, and a pair of deep grey eyes like Hitler. Eyes, the overall feeling is mature, stable, and safe. According to Hitler's memory, Gaogu knew that this was Dun Smith. After Dun closed the door, a pair of grey eyes looked at Gaogu, and his brows instantly wrinkled. Seeing this, Gaogu couldn't help but get a little nervous and thought, did he see that I'm not his brother? In this strange world, it is not impossible. In addition, Dun itself is a nightmare for Sequence 7, and this possibility is even greater. According to Haidal's memory, he often dreamed of Dun, and sometimes chatted with Dun in the dream, but Haidal didn't know why. But Gaogu knew that this was the ability of nightmare to enter a dream. Or is it that the contamination from last night was not completely cleaned up, so he saw it? No matter what, it's not a good thing for me. At this time, Gaogu felt his lips were a little dry. Finally, Dun opened his mouth to break the short-lived peace. Haidal, I don't want you to indulge yourself like this because you are on vacation for graduation. Even if you don't want to go out, you should put on your clothes. Dun's words were like educating a disobedient child. Just this? Gaogu froze in place for a while. When Dun hung up his black trench coat and top hat and dropped his high hairline, he saw Gaogu stunned and did not move. His face became a little displeased. Haider, go to the room and change your clothes, the more you are getting lazy. Ah? Alright, okay. Gaogu regained his senses and hurried upstairs to his room. Only then did he notice that he was wearing pajamas. The family is used to this, and going out to get breakfast just now is the same as going out to get takeout in the last life, and there is no need to change clothes at all. Wait. Dun stopped him. What else is there, team? Dun. Gaogu almost spit out the word captain. Fortunately, the words deng and team are pronounced in the same way, so they didn't reveal anything. Did anything unusual happen at home last night? Dun suddenly became serious. Gaogu's heart clenched again. Could it be that he was still discovered? But he still pretended to be calm and said, no, I slept soundly last night. Hearing Gaogu's answer, Dun finally felt relieved, and looked at Gaogu and explained, last night, the red moon suddenly became very big, and it turned into a white moon, which has never happened before. In short, you be careful lately. Dun felt that last night's anomaly was probably caused by cultists using evil magic, but because of the non-disclosure agreement, he couldn't tell Haidal. Okay. Gaogu nodded quickly to show his understanding, but he still felt uncomfortable when he remembered the situation last night. Reaching out to touch his stomach, he found that it was slightly bulging. Gaogu was startled, and immediately remembered that he had just had breakfast. Just as Gaogu went upstairs, Dun's voice rang again, wait. Gaogu was really taken aback by Dun's behavior. Is there anything else? Forgot to mention, today is Wednesday. The laundry maid is coming to collect the clothes and go back to wash them. Remember to put the clothes to be washed in the room into the clothes bucket. Dun touched his chin and instructed. Okay. Haidal nodded to show his understanding, then went upstairs as fast as he could and returned to his room, closed the door, and started changing his clothes. When he changed his clothes, picked up a few pieces of clothes to be washed, and opened the door of the room, he was taken aback again. Dun was standing outside the door of his room with a serious face at some point. Seeing that Gaogu was taken aback by him, Dun coughed a little awkwardly and said, Haidal, I just remembered something again. Hearing Dun's words, Gaogu managed to hold back the act of reaching out to cover his face. It seemed that the description of Dun's forgetfulness in the book was not exaggerated at all, so he nodded his head to show his understanding. Seeing that Gaogu was not angry, Dun smiled and said, that's it, Daily will return to Tianjin from Inmat Port the day after tomorrow, and I want to invite her to our house as a guest, so I want to ask your consent. Daily? Of course Gao Gu knew who she was. She and Dun liked each other, but they didn't dare to say it for their own reasons. In the end, Dun's death became a real regret. Take revenge and die together with Zhang. But Daily is going to be a guest at the house and ask him why? Gao Gu couldn't figure it out, but suddenly Heidel's memory flashed, and Gao Gu understood why. It turned out that before Dai Li became an extraordinary, her private life was very chaotic. She had had several boyfriends who were classmates of Heidier, so she had a very bad impression of Dai Li. Later, Dai Li became Dun's colleague. Especially when Dun brought Daily to the house as a guest before, Haidal saw that both of them liked each other a little, so Daily didn't look good during the whole process. Gao Gu knew why, because Haidal felt that Daily was not worthy of Dun. After figuring out the causes and consequences, he saw that Dun had a worried expression on his face. At this time, of course he would not object to Daily and Dun being together, but if the attitude changes too much, it may make Dun feel that something is wrong. Especially when such a strange incident happened last night. Gao Gu deliberately pondered for more than 20 seconds, and then slowly said, "Dun, do you know what Dai Li's style of life used to be?" Dun's expression stiffened for a moment, then he gave a wry smile and nodded, but then he said, "That's just her before, Haidal, people always change, isn't it, especially for young people like you?" Gao Gu thought again for a long time, finally nodded slowly, and finally looked into Dun's eyes. "If this is your choice, then Dun, I respect your choice, maybe I was too one-sided before." Dun saw that Hiddle was a little relieved, and took the opportunity to quickly say, "I have been with Daily's colleague for a while, I know her change, and I have seen her change. In the words of Emperor Roselle, she has lost her way. I know it's back." Gao Gu blinked. Lao Huang really reduced some obstacles for him to communicate with people in this world. Hearing Dun say this, Gao Gu felt that it was almost all right, and said helplessly, "Okay, maybe it's my stereotype, so as an apology, I'll cook the day after tomorrow." Hearing Gao Gu's words, Dun finally let go of his dangling heart, and said with a heartfelt smile, "That's really good, Hiddle, I think Daily will be very happy to hear it. I'll inform her in the afternoon, okay? It's all right, you can go to work." Dun turned around and walked to his room, obviously very happy at this time, but he pretended to be very mature and stable. Seeing Dun's mood at this time, Gao Gu said quickly, "I'm going to do a more important thing, which may require a lot of money." Dun didn't care at all and said, "If you don't have enough money, go to the bank to withdraw it. That money is for spending." Then he entered his room, closed the door, and when he calmed down, Dun realized something was wrong. Haider said he would cook the day after tomorrow. I don't think he has cooked yet. At this time, Gao Gu had already gone out, on his way to the Tianjin branch of Backlund Bank. I didn't expect the captain to be so interesting. Thinking of Dun's apprehension when he was waiting for his answer just now, and the fact that he was obviously happy but pretended to be mature and stable after getting the answer, and I wanted to laugh a little, because this is never seen in the book of Haidal. After that, my name will be Heder. The Tianjin branch of Backlund Bank is in the North District, and Hiddle will arrive soon. To be on the safe side, Hiddle took £500, and then by the way asked how much money was left in the bank account. The staff replied with a smile, "You still have a total of 5,320 in your bank account now. £8.15 and 8 pence. After receiving the answer, Hiddle went out of the bank satisfied, and then, relying on the memory in his brain, came to the bus stop. Soon, the public carriage came over, and after paying 4 pence, Hildal managed to get up and found a seat. After starting, he found that it was not bumpy, but surprisingly stable. He guessed that it was because of the ground rails. The dragon bar is in the quayside, and the quayside often means chaos. Haidal didn't realize this until he got off the carriage, a little late. Be careful and you should be fine. Heidel ignored the gazes around him and walked straight to the Evil Dragon bar diagonally opposite the carriage station. As soon as it got close, even through the heavy door, you could hear the excited shouts inside. Ignoring the guards at the door of the bar, Heidel stepped sideways into the bar, and the smell of alcohol instantly wafted through his nostrils, causing him to frown. In the center of the bar, there is a boxing ring. There are two boxers with red tops on the ring, but one has fallen, and the other is holding his hands high, and a large group of people are cheering. The shouts heard outside the door were from them. Heidier ignored this and entered the billiard room at the back according to his memory. There were two people playing billiards. Heidier walked towards the secret door, but was immediately stopped by one of them. Who introduced you here? The man who stopped him asked blankly. If he wants to enter the underground trading market, he must be introduced by an acquaintance. If they come more often in the future, they will not stop him if they have an impression. Heidel had anticipated it for a long time, and said calmly, Old Neil. Hearing Heidier's answer, the two of them glanced at Heidier and seemed a little unconvinced, but in the end they gave way. After Sidal passed through the secret door and walked through several rooms in a row, his eyes suddenly opened up, and he came to a place with a large area. There are people setting up stalls with bottles and jars or some exotic flowers and plants on them, and some pedestrians walk between them, scanning, or negotiating prices with the stall owners. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Sidal, like those pedestrians, walked through the stalls, recalling the potion recipes of the clergyman and comparing the ingredients on the stalls. At this moment, someone shouted loudly, God is here! Ha ha ha! Last night, God was here! Sidar turned his head to look, and saw a pale young man. He was wearing a tattered linen shirt and blue-grey trousers unique to the working class. At this moment, his eyes glowed like light, revealing a madness. Is this the monster? Heidel couldn't remember his name. The monster looked at Heidel excitedly, pointed at him and shouted frantically like the people around him, God is here! God is here! The people around seemed to take it easy, and ignored him at all, but Heidel was shocked. He suddenly remembered that the path of fate was a bit special, as if he could see the source. At this time, someone beside him said to Heidel, Don't pay attention to him, his name is Admiser, he is a madman, a monster, and he often talks nonsense. Although I don't know why the moon became so big and white last night, but nothing happened, praise Goddess. After speaking, the man drew a circle on his chest, and he seemed to be a believer of the night. Heidel remembered that the original owner was also a believer in the night, so he also drew a circle on his chest, praise the goddess. Then he nodded to the man to express his gratitude, and ignored Admiser, and began to actually purchase the ingredients in the formula. It didn't take long before he bought all the auxiliary materials, but in order to hide his eyes and ears, he also bought some materials that are not used will not cost a few dollars anyway. The next step is to purchase the main materials, and the main materials are extraordinary materials. Hiddle walked to one of the two rooms at the end of the trading market. The room on the left is used for loans and repayments, and the room on the right is used to sell and acquire precious items, including extraordinary materials and magical items. However, Heidel guessed that the magical items here should only have weaker abilities or those with auxiliary abilities. After all, there is official monitoring here. If powerful magical items are lost, it is their dereliction of duty. Pushing open the door of the room on the right, Hiddle found that it was divided into two rooms, and there were two customers waiting in the outer room. They were wearing half-height silk top hats, pressing it down very low, for fear of others. See what they look like. Still inexperienced. Heidel touched the thick long black hair on his head, tugged it a few times, and tried to cover his face, but it was in vain. Stand up. Not long after, the door was opened, and a customer who also wore a half-top hat with his head bowed came out and left in a hurry, not daring to stay any longer. It's hard for others to think you're not a ghost like this. Hey, it's best not to let the bad guys see it. Heidel complained maliciously. After 7 or 8 minutes, it was finally his turn. After he went in, he found that it was a little dark inside, only a kerosene lamp illuminated it. After closing the door, it became even darker. Sidal sat on the customer's chair, and the old man in classical costume and wizard hat opposite said, "Tell me what you want." Heidier did not answer, but instead said, "I want to know what extraordinary materials you have here, and their prices." The old man raised his head and looked at Heidel deeply, and an invisible pressure followed. "This is an extraordinary person." But Heidel was not surprised. The old man didn't say anything, and lowered his eyes again. He was not surprised by Heidel's requirements. Many customers often have various requirements, but he was afraid that after knowing what the other party wanted, he would sell them more expensive than the original price. The old man opened the notebook in his hand and said, "Human face rose, £280 for 1, adult black spot frogs, 2, £170 each, star crystal, 150 grams, £150 per 50 grams, the brain tissue of a water ghost." It took almost 2 minutes for Heidel to quietly listen to the old man's introduction. There were about 30 kinds of extraordinary materials, and they were all low level. Fortunately, there are 2 main materials for the clergyman, and the total cost is £320. Heidel said the materials he wanted. The old man stood up and looked at a cabinet at the back. Next, he took out 2 small boxes and walked back, saying, "Check it out." Heidel took it over, without any shyness. He opened the box and checked it carefully. After confirming that it was in good condition, he took out £320 and handed it to the old man. Then he put the 2 materials into a box, and put the box in the pockets of the clothes. After confirming that there is no abnormality from the outside, he went out and left. After leaving the room and returning to the trading floor, he was not in a hurry to leave, but prepared to walk around before leaving. When he walked near Admiser again, the other party suddenly stepped forward and shouted to him frantically, "God, save me, save me, save me out." Heidier suddenly became interested. He knew that Admiser was extremely spiritual, and sometimes he could see things that others couldn't, and he could even predict some things. This is the particularity of people who are born with half a monster sequence. If they can embark on the path of Beyonders, their achievements will not be too low, because they are born in this sequence. It's a pity that Heidel doesn't know the magic potion formula of monster. Rescue you out? Can't you get out? Also, how do I save you out? Heidel asked rhetorically. When Admiser heard Heidel's words, he burst into tears like a madman, and said incoherently, "I'll die. I'll die if I go out. I can't go out." Then he stopped crying suddenly, looked at Heidel and shouted frantically, "Only you can save me out, only you can save me out, save me out." Then he suddenly retorted, "No. No. Not now, not now." Seeing Admiser's insane appearance, Heidel couldn't help but take a few steps back. He couldn't understand what he was saying. If he went out, he would die. He couldn't go out. Can't go out. I actually want to communicate with a lunatic. Heidel shook his head. After Admiser made such a fuss, he was about to leave the underground trading market. And Heidel didn't know that when he came out of the room on the right, someone noticed him, but it was not against him. This man had messy hair and looked to be in his 70s. Holding a large jug of wine in his hand, and kept sending it to his mouth. If you get close to him, you can smell a strong odor of alcohol. This is the former captain of the Deputy Punisher team, and now the evil dragon bar boss, Swain. After seeing Sitter walking out of the room, Swain poured a sip of wine into his mouth and frowned. Isn't this the younger brother of Dunn's kid? Why did he suddenly come here to buy things, and it seems that he also bought Beyonder materials. Although Heidel concealed the box well, he still couldn't hide the experience from Swain, let alone those sharp-eyed thieves. So he raised his hand and called someone to come over, and gave some instructions to the man. The man glanced at Hiddle, nodded, and then walked out of the trading floor. And not long after, Hiddle also left the trading floor and returned to the Evil Dragon bar. He didn't stop there. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com went straight out of the bar. It's just that when he was out of the bar, a man squatting not far from the bar's entrance lit up. After making eye contact with a few companions in the distance, he stood up and walked towards Hiddle like a normal passerby. But soon they saw that someone came out following Heidel, who was from the Dragon Bar. This person was exactly the person Swain had instructed. His sharp eyes instantly swept across the man who was walking towards Hiddle and his accomplices. Those people felt like they were being stared at by a poisonous snake, and instantly shrank back. And Hiddle also noticed the abnormality, glanced at those people, and then turned around to see the sharp-eyed bar staff, who seemed to understand something, nodded to the other party as a sign of gratitude, then wrapped his clothes tightly, walked to the rail bus station. Not long after the carriage came over, Hiddle got in the carriage and left the dock area. After that, he walked home cautiously, not daring to stay outside. When he saw his single-family house, he felt a sense of security. Pregnancy. When he returned to his room, Heidel became a little scared again. As expected, he is still an inexperienced rookie. He goes to the market to buy things without any means of protection. It seems that he needs to get a pistol to protect himself. Fortunately, although I don't know why the guy from the Evil Dragon Bar wants to help me, do you know me? By the way, the owner of Evil Dragon Bar is the former captain of the replacement Punisher squad. He should know Dunn and then meet me? He saw that I had bought Beyonder materials, so he asked his people to protect me and deter those who wanted to attack me. Heidier is not a stupid person, and quickly guessed the truth of the matter through his own reasoning. But these are nothing, the most important thing is that he can immediately become a cleric, a member of Beyonders. It's better to wait until Dunn goes to work. Heidel was more cautious. As the leader of the Night Watchers team, Dunn spent most of his time in the Blackthorn Security Company, and often only slept for a few hours when he went home, and then went back immediately to avoid extraordinary events. Deal with in a timely manner. Hiddle had complained about this, but Dunn simply said, "It's the price of high wages. We don't need such a high salary, it doesn't matter if it's lower." Heidel retorted, while Dunn was just silent, and finally said nothing. And now, Heidel, of course, knows the reason. Sure enough, Dunn's voice sounded from outside the room soon. "Heidel, I have to go to the company, maybe the day after tomorrow. You remember to take care of yourself, don't forget to eat dinner. When the time comes, I should come back with daily. Get ready and don't forget to put on your clothes." Sitter's eyelids twitched. "What do you mean don't forget to put on your clothes? I just didn't change into pajamas." "Okay, Dunn, I see." Heidel replied helplessly. After a while, Heidel, who thought Dunn had left, heard Dunn's voice again. "By the way, the laundry maid has already taken the clothes and washed them, and they should be delivered tomorrow afternoon, remember to put them away. Clothes, hang them on the hangers." "Okay, I see, is there anything else?" "Dunn, can you not do this every time? Heider is a little crazy." "Okay, it's gone, I'm leaving, see you the day after tomorrow." This time, Sitter was not at ease. He came out of the room, formally said goodbye to Dunn, watched him go out, and waited for 10 minutes to make sure Dunn would not come back before he was completely relieved. "Finally, we can start making potions." Heidel couldn't wait to run back to the room, took out all the materials, and headed to the underground storage room. There is more than one room in the basement, and it is divided into several. Some are used to store wine, some are used to store ice, some are used to store various sundries, and one is used as a laboratory. This laboratory was originally left by the previous owner. Dunn asked to keep it when he bought it, but he never saw it used. When he came to the laboratory, he saw that all the experimental equipment was intact and complete, and he was completely relieved. Relying on the memory in his mind, he took out all the experimental equipment used, cleaned it, dried and placed it. Okay. After arranging all the materials in order, Hiddle took a deep breath and started to make the potion. The whole process was serious and rigorous. He was suddenly thankful that when he was in school, every chemistry experiment class, there was a serious one. Well done. About half an hour later, a cup of yellow thick liquid with countless tiny bubbles appeared in front of Hidour's eyes. Just looking at it, Hidour felt that something had entered his mind. He quickly looked away. Maybe I should first come to a Gendazi cigar now, then dance a court dance to relieve my nervousness, and then dry it off. Hidour joked to ease his nervousness. Then without looking at it, he brought the cup to his mouth, and drank the potion in one gulp. The moment he entered the mouth, Hidour felt that the potion was like a jelly, and it slid into his stomach with a thud. And then quickly spreads to every cell in the body. Siddhar felt his whole body start to heat up, his vision began to blur, and a murmur suddenly appeared in his mind, "You finally woke up." At the same time, Siddhar's body erupted uncontrollably with countless tiny fleshy particles. At this moment, Siddhar felt like he was back to being watched by the outer god last night, but his power was reduced countless times. His thoughts began to wander, like a victim floating at sea. Fortunately, he had experience and stabilized his thoughts. Gradually, his body began to return to normal, and he could see the surrounding scene clearly. All the colors clearly overlapped with each other, and a hazy and soft white light appeared in the room. Siddhar knew that this was a problem of the potion's power leaking out, and he began to recall how old Neil had taught Klein to contemplate something in his mind that did not exist in the world, so he meditated on different things in his mind. Threads of colors are not regularly intertwined. Soon, his body and mind calmed down, and his spirituality extended and unfolded little by little. Hidour opened his eyes, looked at himself, and saw that every part of his body exuded different colors. This should be spirit vision. Hidour was a little excited, he finally became a beyonder. Being able to see spirituality means that I am very spiritual, doesn't it mean that I can also use divination? Hidour smiled, and then made a secret switch to turn on and off the vision, using the pulp of the thumb and the pulp of the index finger. Rub twice. If you put your hand in front of you to turn on your spiritual vision, wouldn't that mean what you mean? Hidour thought amusingly. Just when he was about to check what abilities he had gained as a clergyman, he suddenly felt a torrent of information rushed into his mind. What? Siddhar let out a scream. The information torrent in UU reading www.ukansha.com's mind was carrying too much information, and he couldn't digest it right away. Siddhar felt that his brain was going to be blown up by this information at the moment, his eyes were red, and his veins were blown up. He knew that if he could not digest this information into his own knowledge in time, his head would explode directly, and the laboratory would be full of flesh and blood. Just when Hidour felt that he was about to explode, he noticed that his chest under his clothes suddenly became hot, and a translucent cross pattern appeared, so the flood of information in his mind was absorbed by the cross. After being liberated, Hidour couldn't hold it any longer, collapsed to the ground, and sighed heavily. After a long time, Hidour recovered a little, and said with lingering fear, "What's going on? I'm just a Sequence 9 cleric. Why is there so much information? Is it the ghost of the hidden sage? What does that murmur mean?" Siddhar stood up from the ground, guessing how the flood of information just now appeared, because this kind of behavior was too much like the method of hiding the sage. Remembering the abnormality that came from his chest before, he quickly took off his clothes and took a look. "I saw a translucent cross pattern on the chest. Is it the key to enter heaven?" Hidour guessed, because after he came out of heaven, he didn't know how to enter heaven again, so he strengthened his previous idea, only by becoming a priest can master the heaven. At this time, the mark on his chest proved that his thoughts were indeed correct. After calming down, Hidal found that even though the cross had absorbed the flood of information before, there was still a lot of information in his mind. He quickly digested it. When Hidal digested the information in his mind, his face was filled with excitement and some disbelief. From that information, he knew what abilities he had. The first is to make holy water. These holy waters have mild healing properties, and can treat some common ailments, as well as relieve some serious ones. The most important thing is that it has the ability to purify. If it is contaminated, after drinking holy water, it can be purified. The second is to pray. Prayer can bring some good luck and dispel the inner darkness. And this can be a prayer for others, and a prayer for yourself. Another is that priests have the ability to counter prophecy and anti-divination. In addition to these, I also know how to create a spiritual wall. Of course, there are also psychics, divination, and vision. These are all things that people with high spirituality can do, but the corresponding knowledge must be learned. And here's the problem: Hidal discovered that the previous flood of information was actually the knowledge brought by becoming a clergyman, and the knowledge of psychics, divination, etc. was in that information. Thinking of the flood of information, Hidal was still a little scared at this time. It's too dangerous to become a clergyman, who can digest this information. If there is no help from heaven, it is estimated that one of them is one fry. However, the knowledge of the flood of information did not disappear, but was absorbed by the book of blasphemy above heaven, and Hidal also knew how to enter heaven at this time. You only need to use your spirituality to stimulate the cross in your chest, and you can enter into heaven. This is much more convenient than Klein's entry into the Origin Castle. You don't have to recite the honorable name and take 4 steps backwards. It may be that after becoming a cleric, his spirituality has become higher and his memory has also improved. Hidal found that he actually remembered a lot of secret memories. Among them are the transfer ceremony performed by Klein when he crossed over, and the honorable name of Heavenly Venerable that he recited. If I do this transshipment ceremony now, will Origin Castle recognize me as the master? But Hidal soon remembered, unless he became Origin Castle's corresponding diver, apprentice, and thief path, otherwise, even if you recite the honorable name and perform the ceremony, the Origin Castle will not let you in if there is a reaction. In his later years, Roselle tried to save himself. It's better to be the master of my heaven honestly, and heaven was left from the original. Now I have recognized me as the master. I am going to carry out the transfer ceremony now. Origin Castle is afraid that the next thunder will strike me directly. Fortunately, Raiden belongs to Brother Lord of the Storm. Hidal had a funny thought in his heart. After he became a Beyonder and the Master of Heaven, his mood was much happier. It's time to go to heaven to see what knowledge is recorded in that flood of information. Hidal regained his composure. Relying on the knowledge he had just gained in his mind, he went to the kitchen to pick up a silver knife, and set up a spiritual wall. The spiritual wall can create a sealed environment to avoid external interference. After the arrangement was completed, Hidal controlled his spirituality and inspired the cross on his chest. The translucent cross seemed to have entered the void and disappeared. In the next moment, Hidal's eyes darkened, and he felt as if he had entered the void with the cross, and was floating in the void, and in this void, he saw floating pictures passing by one after another. These pictures, the scenes are almost similar, all people are praying, and their backgrounds, the surrounding environment, are all dim, only a few lights illuminate, and are illuminated by flashes of lightning from time to time. It's a pity that Hidal couldn't hear their prayers, but seeing such a scene and environment, Hidal still intuitively guessed where these people were. The land forsaken by God. However, Hidal couldn't stop to watch, he could only uncontrollably swipe past these pictures quickly, and then he saw the familiar white light, and the whole person was instantly sucked in. Afterwards, Hidal found that he had come to heaven, sitting on the grey and white seat like the last time he left. At the same time, he also discovered that at this time he could actually see himself in reality, standing in the underground laboratory with a straight face, maintaining the state of inspiring the cross. This is the true vision. Because he knew that Cedar had similar abilities, Hiddle was not so surprised. Not caring about this anymore, Cedar turned to look at the armrest on the left. The Book of Blasphemy was lying there quietly, but it changed. Originally there was only one sheet of paper, but now there is a thick sheet of paper in the middle. Cedar couldn't help rubbing his temples and said, "With so much, how can I digest it all at once? No wonder my head is going to explode." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and opened the Book of Blasphemy. The first page was filled with words. Sidal just glanced at it, and was completely shocked. On it, there was actually a potion formula. He hurriedly turned the page, and he did too. Hyder became excited and turned the pages continuously, but soon he found out that the latter was not the case. Only the first 4 sheets of paper recorded the formula of the potion. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. However, Cedar was not disappointed. He had a hunch that after he was promoted to Sequence 8, a new potion formula would definitely appear again. So he started to turn back to the first page, looked at the text on it, and read it out. Sequence 9 Audience, Auxiliary Materials, Pure Water 100 ml. Sequence 9 Reader. Sequence 9 Singer. Sequence 9 Sailor. Sequence 9 Thief. Sequence 8 Exorcist, Auxiliary Materials, 100 ml of pure water, 1 piece of midsummer grass, 1 piece of siren's stone. Sidal read all the potion formulas in one go, and found that the Sequence 9 potion formulas of the 22 pathways were recorded on them, and finally there was a Sequence 8 potion formula. After reading it, he withdrew his gaze, leaned on the armrest, and said, "Sequence 9 of the 22 pathways, 1 is not bad, and the last Sequence 8 exorcist should be the follow-up sequence of clergy." Clergy, exorcist, how does it feel like a priest in a weird novel? Hee, who cares, anyway, I only need to act, I don't need to become a cleric in the true sense, but the cleric potion formula in the Book of Blasphemy has disappeared, but it's fine, anyway, I have already remember it. Saying that, Hyder recalled the potion formula of the cleric in his mind, but suddenly found that he couldn't remember it at all. This made him stand up from his seat in an instant. How is it possible? I have firmly memorized it before, only in retrospect, the formula seems to be imprinted in my mind. This strange situation made Hidal feel a sense of fear even in heaven. He began to turn his brain, thinking and guessing, this situation will also cause a problem, this path, only one person can go. Thinking that when he first became a clergyman, if it weren't for the existence of heaven, he would have been bombed to death by the flood of information, and Hidal felt even more that this path could only be taken alone. But soon, Hidal thought of another possibility again. No, there is also a possibility that not only can one go alone, but many people can go, but the original owner of heaven, the primary, has done tricks and only allows one person to go. But why did he do this? Could it be more conducive to his recovery? Suddenly, Sidar recalled the murmur in his mind shortly after drinking the potion, "You're finally awake." Above heaven, Hidal couldn't calm down for a long time. At this moment, he had a feeling that his fate had been arranged by someone. But even if he guessed this, he was powerless to change at this time. After a long time, he sat back in his seat a little absent-minded and said with a wry smile, "I probably understand Klein's mood at that time." Throwing away these negative emotions, Hidal said bitterly, "If it comes, let's be at ease. Besides, the creator of Silver City could find a way to get rid of the primitive, so I don't necessarily have no chance. In fact, the best way to get rid of the primitive is to not ascend the sequence." Hiddle had thought about it just now, but he quickly denied it. Without strength, if you encounter extraordinary events in this world, you can't even protect yourself, and as the end approaches, the probability of extraordinary events will become more and more frequent. And if he wants to survive in the apocalypse, Hidal doesn't think that there are other better ways than becoming the old days. By the current gods? Stop kidding. You can believe in the power of the gods, but not in the mercy of the gods. Hidal knew that these gods, if not for the anchor, would not care too much about the life and death of ordinary people. In order to achieve their goals, these gods would even sacrifice the lives of hundreds of thousands of ordinary people. Sidal didn't want him to be a sacrificed member of a who wanted to achieve his purpose in the future. So even if I know that original is very likely to recover in my body in the future, until it replaces me, I must improve my strength. After figuring out these things, Hildar flipped through the Book of Blasphemy again. He now needs more knowledge and stronger strength to deal with the revival of the primordial and the doomsday in the future. Soon, Sidal saw knowledge about psychics, divination, etc. on the Book of Blasphemy, and he found that as long as he read it once, this knowledge was firmly remembered by himself. No, it needs to be memorized again, just like the potion formula of the original clergy. In this way, this Book of Blasphemy is really suitable for scumbags to study. After muttering, Sidar continued to look around and looked at it. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly felt that his head was a little heavy. Sidar knew that this was because his spirituality was almost exhausted. If he did not leave heaven, about to be kicked out like last time. In order to prevent this from happening, Hidal took the initiative to leave heaven, wrap himself in spirituality, and simulate the feeling of falling. The next moment, he returned to the underground laboratory. He took out his pocket watch from his pocket and glanced at it, and found that it took him about half an hour to get in and out. It seems that the flow rate of time between heaven and the real world is 1:1. Next, Hidal cleaned the used experimental instruments and put them back in their original positions, then removed the wall of spirituality and returned to the hall. It was only at this point that Hidal realized that it was already past 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and he didn't seem to have eaten lunch. Thinking of this, a strong sense of hunger struck. I originally wanted to cook and eat by myself and practice my hands, but now it seems that I can only go to the restaurant outside for dinner, but I have to change my clothes. Hidal glanced at the clothes on his body. He was in the basement just now because he couldn't bear it. A torrent of knowledge, and finally collapsed on the ground dirty. Maybe I should be named Voldemort. Sidar said with a joke, then went back to his room, changed his clothes, a formal suit, because the restaurant he was going to was more expensive, and most of the people who went there thought they were only poor. A middle-class gentleman with a little chance to become a rich man is a bit of a mouthful, but that's it. But I'm not that kind of person. After changing into his formal clothes, he put on a silk top hat, picked up a silver cane inlaid with heavy peach wood, and tried to wave it a few times. Perfect. Next time I go to the underground trading place, I have to take this cane with me. Maybe I should buy a pistol. The underground trading market should have it, but I have experienced too much today. I will go tomorrow. You reading www.ukansha.com. Because the clergy had no direct means of confronting the enemy, Hidal felt that it would be safer to buy a gun for the sake of insurance. While chatting, Hidal went out. The restaurant was close to the hall's neighborhood. He walked for about 10 minutes before he came to the restaurant. He chose a seat and sat down. Soon a waiter came over and asked him what he wanted to eat. What? Because I didn't eat at noon, Hidal ordered a bit too much. It didn't take long for the waiter to bring it up, with fried steak, boiled lamb with sauce, potato salad, and expensive rice. Seeing the drooling of his mouth, Hidal originally wanted to devour the food regardless of his image, but as he saw the people around him, he could only take a slow, gentle manner and put the food into his mouth. When he was enjoying himself, 2 people chatted and entered the restaurant. We need a box. The 2 said as soon as they came in, and Hidal couldn't help but look up. The restaurant's box is very expensive. For £1 gold pound, Hideol would not dare to be so messy if he had money. Flower. Both of them looked like middle-aged people. One of them had obvious dark circles on his face, the brown ones were thick and hard, and the other stood stubbornly, like he was playing a hedgehog. The other person has thick and messy eyebrows, a pair of grey-blue eyes, and his left hand is tightly pressed against his abdomen, as if there is something in his clothes. Soon a waiter led the two upstairs. The man with grey-blue eyes and his stomach tucked his belly urged the man beside him, "Hinas, hurry up." The man named Hinas said, "All right, Sirius." Then the two of them went up. Hideol couldn't hear them clearly, and he had never seen these two people, but their names were linked to the names he remembered in his mind. One of their full names is Sirius Arpes and the other is Hinas Vansant. The former is a cloth merchant, while the latter is one of the main members of the Hall Street Divination Club. But in addition to these identities, they also have an identity, a hidden organization that believes in the true creator, a member of the Aurora Society. Siddhar slowed down the speed of eating, and thought about it, thinking that Sirius had pressed his left hand against his abdomen just now. Could it be that inside his clothes are the notes of the Antigonus family? It's still a long time before Klein comes down. It seems that they are still studying the notes and haven't sold them to Klein's classmate Welch. Wait a minute, the Antigonus family's notes have arrived. Doesn't that mean that Zangwil also came with 008? Hyder instantly became alert, and there was a kind of want to rush out of this impulse. Because now the notes of the Antigonus family are under the monitoring and arrangement of 008. As for his current sequence 9 strength, if 008 were to notice him, he would have to arrange himself at that time. Even if heaven existed, it would be difficult to resist. Even if he wants to save Dun from 008, it is best to act behind the scenes and not let 008 affect him, otherwise as long as he is arranged, let alone save Dun, he may even get in. Klein is the best example. Can't think. I know it, it knows me, and the more I know it, the more likely I will be a part of the story. Hyder forcibly disrupted his thoughts, so that he would not think about it everything from 008. Although the clergy has the ability to reverse divination and anti-prophecy, even if there is heaven's blessing, he is only a sequence 9, and 008 is too high. Hyder's thoughts were all in a mess, and he lost his appetite for a while. He hurriedly took 2 bites and left the restaurant. He got into the taxi and returned home, burying himself in the quilt. It seems that only in this way can there be such an unreal sense of security. After thinking of something, Hyder got off the bed, caressed his chest with his left hand, and put the 4 fingers of his right hand on his forehead. The power of the words spoken by Hideol are not the official language of Ruin, but the ancient Hermes language. This is one of the abilities of prayer and clergy, which can bring appropriate good luck. To dispel the inner darkness, that is, negative emotions. After praying, Hyder found that the fear in his heart was much less, and there seemed to be something protecting him, which made Hyder relieved. Tomorrow morning, I will go to the underground trading market and buy all the materials I need, as well as the pistol. Hyder gained a lot from the Book of Blasphemy in Heaven. In addition to reading the knowledge of psychics and divination at the beginning, he also learned ritual magic, sacrifice rituals, gifting rituals, and spell-making rituals. He plans to buy materials tomorrow to make spells, as well as a sterling silver pendulum for divination. Of course, he also buys some materials for ritual magic, sacrificial rituals and gifting rituals. Thinking about it, Hyder suddenly remembered that he hadn't finished reading the Book of Blasphemy. Go to heaven tomorrow and have a look. After you have learned all the knowledge, there should be something you can use later. And how to play the cleric and digest the potion quickly. This is a big problem for Hyder, and also, the main material of the exorcist, the underground trading market not at all, you have to find a way to get it from other channels. However, the main issue is how to act as a cleric. According to the understanding of the previous life, and the fact that the follow-up is an exorcist, Heidel thinks that a priest may be similar to a priest or a missionary. So I want to spread the miracles of the Lord and attract others to believe in the gods I believe in? You can try this, but whose miracles should I spread, the goddess of the night, the Lord of the storm? Or the eternal blazing sun? Forget about the eternal scorching sun, or let the people of the Church of Storms know about it. I'm afraid they will sink me into the sea to feed the fish. Or, like the fool, I give myself a name and spread myself. Thinking about it this way, Heidel felt that it was not impossible, and the most important thing was that he also needed faith as an anchor in the future, especially in order to fight against the recovery of the primitive in the future. Anchor is the most important thing to fight against his recovery. So instead of promoting others, it is better to promote yourself. However, this can only be publicized quietly and carefully, otherwise, as long as the people of the Church of the Righteous God know about it, one will be counted as one, and they will all be caught by cultists for experiments or killed on the spot. I feel like I'm about to become the evil god in other people's mouths. Is there a new secret organization coming out of the mysterious world? Why isn't there a place for me to spread my beliefs? Heidel sighed and lay back on the bed. How can I spread my beliefs and my honorable name? Sidal, who was lying on the bed, looked at the ceiling, his thoughts scattered, and after a long time, the corner of his mouth laughed. He suddenly thought of a place that was too suitable for him to preach. Land forsaken by God. In the land forsaken by the gods, the 7 gods are isolated from the outside world and cannot intervene at all. The only true creator is already crazy, and there is no need for the belief of the people in the land forsaken by the gods. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. Therefore, those who are still alive in the land abandoned by God basically still believe in the creator of the city of silver. When I entered heaven today, I walked through the void, and there were images of spherical spheres that were filled with people from the land forsaken by God praying. I can try to establish a connection with them. Maybe I can use the help of the power of heaven is connected to them. Heidel thought of this and wanted to do it now, but he still gave up, because he had just come down from heaven not long ago, his spirituality has not recovered well, and he has experienced too many things today, and his current state is not very good. Wait until tomorrow, after reading the Book of Blasphemy, try it. After making the decision, Heidel covered up the quilt, and he was ready to go to bed. Although it was still early, he really felt very tired now, so he started to meditate in his mind, and fell asleep after a while. 2 men are sitting in the living room on the first floor of the single-family house at number 19 on the house block. On the guest table in front of them is a notebook with a cover made entirely of dark black cardboard in an antique style. These 2 were exactly the ones that Heidel saw Sirius and Hinez in the dining room, and the notebook on the table was naturally the Antigonus family's notebook. Both of them looked at the notes on the table with a frenzy on their faces. These were the notes that they finally got from Mr. Z after they finally got credit. The notes that just arrived today. And they took so much effort to get this notebook because they learned from Mr. Z that a member of the esoteric order accidentally bought the Antigonus family's notebook as an ordinary ancient book. Now, in order to get it back, the secret society has dispatched a large number of people. I heard that there is precious information in it, but ordinary people can't interpret it. Okay, Hinez, let's open it up and have a look, I can't wait. Sirius urged impatiently, as if he couldn't wait to watch the content inside. Hinez, who was beside him, was not in a hurry, so he took out a pendulum in his arms and said, "Sirius, you are too unsteady. We should at least make a divination to see if it is dangerous to open this kind of ancient family thing." Sirius thought it was unnecessary. "You are wasting our precious time, you are not a fortune teller." Regardless of the anxious Sirius on the side, Hinez began to do divination. Although he was not a fortune teller, but a secret analyst, but his spirituality was also high, and he knew it well enough to do divination. There is no danger in opening this notebook. There is no danger in opening this notebook. After 7 times, the pendulum began to swing, clockwise, indicating that there was no danger. I just said you were wasting your time. Sirius said impatiently. Hehe, I don't think I'm wasting my time. Divination is very necessary. The difference between us and the other members is that we are both rational. Hinez put the spirit back into his pocket. Don't look at Sirius' anxious look, but he is not reckless. From the afternoon to now, he has not opened the notebook without permission to watch, and is waiting for his divination at this time. After making sure it was safe, Sirius quickly opened the note, and the two saw the contents inside. However, they soon looked at each other, and they couldn't understand the words inside. What should we do now? Are we going to look up the dictionary? Sirius asked uncertainly. However, Haynes quickly regained his composure and said, don't forget that divination is just my hobby. I am actually a knowledgeable person who knows ancient Fuzak, ancient Hermes, and other languages. I will try to translate the content inside, you remember to help memorize it. Sirius breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, I'll go get a pen and paper now. When he took the pen and paper, he muttered, I am also a secret prayer person, but I don't have much knowledge. The ability of secret prayers has nothing to do with knowledge, they are just easier to connect with unknown existences. For the rest of the time, one of them translated the content, and the other recorded it with a new notebook, until late at night when Haynes was too tired to bear it did they stop. Sirius was very excited when he saw what he had recorded. Haynes, we are going to make a great contribution this time. There are actually 3 potion formulas in it. Although Haynes felt very tired, he was also very happy, but looking at the potion formula, his mood was a little complicated. These 3 recipes are Divinator, Clown, and Magician, and they happen to be Sequence 9, Sequence 8, and Sequence 7. What Haynes wanted to be the most was a fortune teller back then, but unfortunately the Aurora Society did not have a corresponding potion formula. Seemingly seeing Haynes' emotions, Sirius was afraid that the other party would not translate in the future, so he quickly comforted, don't be discouraged Haynes, if we translate something of greater value later, you may make a wish to the Lord, change you to a fortune teller. Haynes also felt that it should be possible. After all, the Lord is omnipotent. When the sun rose in the sky as promised and shone the sun into Hiddle's room, Hiddle opened his eyes soberly. He actually slept soundly last night. Maybe that's the benefit of falling asleep during meditation. He didn't stay in bed, because he was too awake, so he got up and changed his clothes, then went to the bathroom to wash up, then went downstairs, got breakfast, and after eating, he went back to the room. He was going to enter heaven again, but he didn't want to stand in it like last time, so he sat on the soft leather sofa in the room, arranged the spiritual wall, and used his spirituality to inspire the cross. So he came to the void again. He tried his best to look into the distance. He wanted to see where the end of the void was, but he couldn't see the edge. Exist. Sidal strayed upwards and saw again the scene of the people in the Forsaken Land praying in different pictures, but he still couldn't see the specific situation, because he passed them quickly, and when he saw the white light, he was sucked in and sat on the grey seat again. Sidar knew that he had a lot to do and his time was limited, so he didn't dare to delay, and immediately opened the Book of Blasphemy. Where did you see it yesterday? Hedder couldn't help muttering, so he saw that the Book of Blasphemy began to turn pages automatically. Wah wah wah! It was soon fixed on one of the pages. Hidal was stunned, glanced at it, and found that it was the page he saw yesterday, so he smiled, I can't think of blasphemy. Books have this ability. Not daring to waste time, Hidal began to look through it, because he could remember it just by looking at it once, so Hidal read it very quickly, and he had already finished most of it yesterday, so it didn't take much time. Hidal just read it. Completely finished. Hey, I didn't expect that the content behind this is all high-level mysticism knowledge. After Hidal read it, Yu read the book www.yuyuganshu.com couldn't help but sigh. The following content records the sacrificial rituals and the esoteric knowledge of the secret deed rituals. These are high-level rituals, because if used properly, there is a high probability that these two types can be bestowed by the gods, especially the former. Like some evil organizations, they like to perform sacrificial ceremonies in order to obtain the evil power bestowed by the evil gods. Some of these sacrifices are by killing others, and some are a large number of believers willing to become sacrifices. However, the sacrificial ceremony in the Book of Blasphemy is not like this. It uses something valuable as a sacrifice, and then sacrifices it to a specific existence. If the other party accepts it, it will give the sacrificer what he wants. After studying the contents of the Book of Blasphemy, Heidal began to work on the land forsaken. This was about his role and the anchor for his early awakening to the antigen, which was something he had to do. It's just that those prayers are all in emptiness, and Hildar has no way to establish contact with them. So Hidal looked at the silver white cross on his right. Although he didn't know what the cross was, it was very personal. Hidal actually had a guess that this cross is likely to be the uniqueness of the clergy pathway. Perhaps he could connect with those who prayed through the cross. Thinking of this, Siddhar stretched out his right hand and held the silver white cross. At this moment, Siddhar felt that he was full of power, giving him the illusion that he had become a god. Hey! This feeling is different from the first time I came in and held the cross. Could it be because I was just an ordinary person last time, but now I have become a Beyonder and the Master of Heaven? With the help of the cross, Hidal felt that the entire heaven was under his control.